The golden halls of the Arctarian Empire were filled with music, laughter, and the scent of glowing flowers. Thousands of nobles gathered beneath the shining crystal ceiling to welcome an unusual guest. A human. They had never seen one before. Humans were considered weak, slow, and far behind in technology. To the Arctarians, humans were a simple species, useful for labor, not for honor. At the front of the grand hall stood three tall figures, the royal sisters of Arctaria. They were famous across galaxies. Leora, the eldest, was wise but proud, with eyes that burned like red suns. Zila, the middle sister, had sharp beauty and psychic powers that could crush minds. Nyra, the youngest, was playful, cruel, and loved to make others feel small. They stood beside their father, the mighty King Theros, ruler of 20 star systems. His voice could silence storms. Today he smiled with amusement. "Bring in the human," he said. The great doors opened with a deep echo. A man walked in slowly, guarded by 2 soldiers. He wore a simple dark uniform marked with a small silver badge that read E. Cole. His face was calm, his brown eyes steady. The court burst into laughter. "Is that it?" someone whispered. "So tiny. Where's his armor? Where's his translator?" Another mocked. "He looks like a pet," Nyra said, smirking. "Maybe we can keep him." Ethan Cole didn't react. He stopped in the center of the hall and looked up at the king's throne, a shining mountain of gold and crystal. He didn't bow. He didn't speak. He only looked. The king tilted his head. "You are a long way from your small blue planet, human." "Yes," Ethan said quietly. His voice was firm, almost calm. "But I didn't come here by mistake." That made the crowd whisper again. No one dared to speak like that in front of the king. Leora crossed her arms. "Do you even know where you stand, human? This is the center of power in the galaxy. Your kind should kneel." Ethan looked straight at her and said, "On Earth we don't kneel to power. We build it." The hall went silent. The king leaned forward, amused. "You are brave." "Or foolish." "Both," Ethan said. Leora frowned. Zila's eyes glowed faintly blue as she tried to enter his mind, but she pulled back almost instantly. Her face turned pale. "What did you just do?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at her. "I told you. I didn't come here by mistake." The court started murmuring louder. Something about this human was not normal. No ordinary man could resist Zila's psychic touch. The king raised his hand and the hall fell quiet. "Interesting. You are not afraid. That alone earns my attention. Tell me, why should I not destroy you?" Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "Because I know something you don't. And what is that?" The king asked with a faint smile. Ethan took a slow breath. "Your empire is in danger. Something is coming. I can stop it, but only if you let me live." The hall erupted in laughter again. Nyra clapped her hands mockingly. "You can stop danger? From what, a meteor?" But the king didn't laugh. He had seen many men speak in fear, but this human spoke with certainty. There was no shaking in his voice, no false pride. "Only calm truth. Danger, you say?" The king said softly. "And what do you want in return?" "Your trust," Ethan replied. Leora scoffed. "He speaks like a soldier, but he's alone, unarmed, and uninvited." "Sometimes one man is enough," Ethan said. His words struck something deep in her. The king leaned back in his throne, thinking. Then he smiled slowly. "Very well, human. I will not kill you yet. You amuse me. You will stay in the royal court under my daughter's watch." The 3 sisters looked at each other in disbelief. Nyra laughed. "Father, you can't be serious. We're not babysitters." "Then think of it as a game," the king said. "Teach him what it means to be among the stars. Show him how small he really is." The sisters bowed unwillingly. As the guards led Ethan away, Leora whispered, "Enjoy your last days, human. You may have courage, but courage dies fast here." Ethan glanced back, his eyes sharp as steel. "Then you haven't met humans yet." The hall grew quiet again. Even the air seemed heavier. As Ethan disappeared through the golden doors, the king whispered to himself, "There's something strange about that one." Above the palace, the stars burned quietly, but somewhere beyond them, a shadow was moving, toward Arctaria, and Ethan Cole was the only one who knew it. The next morning, the palace lights dimmed softly as dawn passed through the crystal walls. The golden halls shimmered like liquid sunlight. Servants hurried, guards trained, and far above them in the east tower, Three alien sisters stood together, watching a lone figure walk across the training yard below. The human, Captain Ethan Cole. He was dressed in simple gray clothes, no armor, no weapon. Yet his walk was calm and steady. Every step had purpose. Leora folded her arms, her red eyes narrowing. He still stands tall, even after being laughed at all night. Nira giggled. Maybe he doesn't understand shame, or maybe humans are too dumb to feel it. Zela tilted her head. Or maybe he's hiding something. His mind is strange. I tried to read him again this morning. It was like touching fire. Leora smirked. Then maybe it's time we teach our new guest what happens to fire when it meets the stars. Ethan was taken to the royal garden that day, a massive arena filled with glowing vines and floating stones. The air smelled of metal and flowers. The sisters arrived together wearing battle robes that shimmered like liquid light. Leora spoke first. Human Father said we must teach you our ways, but first you must prove you are worthy to learn. Ethan simply nodded. How? Nira grinned. By surviving us. The sisters moved in a triangle around him, their energy crackling in the air. Leora raised her hand and summoned a field of burning plasma. Zila's eyes glowed blue as she projected illusions around him, 10 copies of herself circling like ghosts. Nira vanished into the air, her body turning invisible. Most humans would have fallen to their knees in fear. Ethan did not move. He closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. The ground trembled as Leora launched the first attack. A blast of molten energy that hit the floor where Ethan stood. The explosion threw dust and light into the air. The sisters smiled. That was fast, Nira laughed. But when the dust cleared, Ethan stood unharmed a few feet away, smoke curling from the ground behind him. He had moved before the blast hit. Zila frowned. Impossible. He didn't teleport. He predicted it. Leora hissed. Begin again. They attacked faster this time. Leora's plasma, Zila's mind waves, Nira's blades flashing from invisibility. But Ethan moved like water, his body turning, ducking, blocking without panic. He didn't fight back, he only avoided, countered, and stepped aside. He was reading them. After 10 minutes, they stopped. The air was filled with the sound of their heavy breathing and the faint hum of energy fading away. Ethan stood in the middle, quiet as stone. Nira growled, frustrated. How are you doing that? Ethan met her gaze. Humans survive by learning fast. You attack like lightning, but your pride slows you down. Leora's jaw tightened. You dare to lecture us? Ethan's voice was calm. You wanted to test me. Now you have your answer. Zila looked at him, her expression unreadable. No, I don't have an answer yet. Only more questions. Later that evening, word spread through the palace. The human had lasted against the celestial daughters for a full duel. The nobles whispered in disbelief. Some called it luck. Others said the sisters had gone easy on him. But deep down, even they began to wonder. Who was this human who moved like he had seen their attacks before they happened? That night, as stars shimmered outside the tower, Zila stood on her balcony, eyes closed, focusing her telepathic sight on Ethan's room below. She expected to see fear or confusion. But what she found was silence. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, his hands glowing faintly with blue light. Human light, but mixed with something older. His heartbeat echoed like a slow drum, and inside his thoughts, she saw a name she had never heard before. Project Dawnfire. She gasped and cut the connection instantly, her mind trembling. Project Dawnfire, she whispered to herself. That isn't human. Or Arctarian. Leora entered her room just then. What's wrong? Zela's voice shook slightly. He's not what he seems. There's something inside him. Something. Ancient? Leora frowned. Ancient? Yes, it's not human technology. It's older, like it came from before our stars were born. Nira laughed from behind them. You're saying the weak little human is carrying something from the beginning of time? Zela didn't smile. I'm saying he might be the reason the king kept him alive. Leora turned to the night sky, her voice quiet but serious. Then we better find out before it's too late. Down below, Ethan looked up at the stars, whispering to himself. They still don't understand. But they will. Soon. The light under his skin glowed brighter for a moment, then vanished. And far beyond the horizon, hidden in the dark of space, something huge began to move, something that had been waiting for centuries. The real reason Ethan Cole came to Arctaria was about to wake. The night in Arctaria was quiet, but the silence held secrets. Silver moons floated over the royal city, and the towers shimmered with soft light. Inside one of those towers, Zila sat alone, her mind full of questions that refused to rest. The human, Ethan Cole, had defeated their games, resisted her mind, and moved like a being who already knew the future. No ordinary creature could do that. Not even the king's best warriors could block her telepathic reach, yet Ethan had done it easily. Like his mind was made of glass that reflected light back into her. She couldn't stop thinking about that strange name she had seen in his mind. Project Dawnfire. It sounded human, but ancient, like something that wasn't meant to be remembered. The next day, Zila went to the archives hidden deep beneath the palace. The air there smelled of dust and old code, records from hundreds of alien worlds. She searched for hours until her hand brushed across a glowing cube marked with the Earth emblem. She touched it. The cube lit up and a voice began to speak in a human language she barely understood. Project Dawnfire, authorized by Earth Defense Command. Subject, Captain Ethan Cole. Mission, retrieval of pre-galactic artifact. Warning, non-human DNA integration detected. Zila's heart froze. Non-human DNA? She whispered. She pressed the cube again. Subject survived fusion. Energy core stable. Consciousness intact. Caution. Potential cosmic link to the ancient builders. She stepped back, eyes wide. The ancient builders, the oldest beings in history, believed to have vanished before galaxies even formed. How could a human carry their power? Her hands trembled. She had mocked Ethan, called him weak. But now she wasn't sure who he really was. Later that evening, Zila found Ethan standing near the observatory, staring at the stars through a wide glass dome. His back was to her, his voice calm. "You found it, didn't you?" he said quietly. She froze. "Found what?" "The record," Ethan said, turning to face her. His eyes glowed faintly, just for a second, but she saw it. That same strange light. Zila took a step closer. "What are you?" Ethan looked at the stars again. "I'm human, but not the same as before." "Not fully." "Then what did they do to you?" he sighed. "We found something buried deep under Earth's oceans. A machine older than your empire, older than your sun. It wasn't built by humans. It was waiting." Zila frowned. "Waiting for what?" Ethan's voice softened. "For someone who could hold its power. It chose me." The air between them felt heavy. Zila could feel his truth, but it didn't make sense. "You're saying you're carrying power from the ancient builders?" "That's impossible," Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe. But so is a man walking into a room full of gods and not bowing." She stared at him, trying to read his face, his energy, his thoughts. But she couldn't. His mind wasn't human anymore. It was like standing in front of a sun, too bright to see through. Meanwhile, outside the observatory, Naira was hiding behind a column, listening. Her sharp grin had faded into shock. The playful sister who once mocked the human now felt something strange, a mix of fear and curiosity. She whispered to herself, "So, he's not weak at all." Later, when the sisters gathered for dinner, Zila told them what she had discovered. Leora crossed her arms. "You're saying a human carries the power of the first race? You expect us to believe that?" Zila's voice was calm but serious. "I saw it. His body carries their energy. It's like a living weapon." Naira leaned forward. "Then why is he here?" "What does he want from us?" Zila hesitated. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's not revenge. He's warning us about something." Leora shook her head. "Warnings are tricks. He's here to use us." Zila met her gaze. "Then why hasn't he killed us yet?" Silence fell over the table. The question hung in the air like a blade. Leora looked away, pretending not to care, but deep inside, a small spark of doubt began to grow. That night, when all lights dimmed, Zila couldn't sleep. She stood by her window again, watching the stars. Below her in the courtyard, Ethan was training. Alone, his movements sharp and silent. Each strike he made left a faint trail of blue fire, and then suddenly he stopped. He looked up, right at her tower window. Their eyes met even from that distance. Zila's heart skipped a beat. She stepped back, her pulse racing. Ethan spoke softly, though she couldn't hear the words. His lips formed 3 simple ones. It's beginning soon. Then the light under his skin flared once more, brighter this time, like the heart of a newborn star, and across the dark sky, far beyond Arctaria's moon, something stirred. A faint ripple of energy moved through space. Whatever Project Dawnfire was, it wasn't just inside Ethan, it was waking up across the galaxy. The next morning came with thunder, not from the sky, but from the palace itself. Heavy drums echoed through the halls of the Arctarian Empire as word spread. The king had summoned the human. Servants whispered in corners. Soldiers polished their weapons. Even the 3 sisters looked uneasy as they stood beside the great throne. King Tharos, the ruler of 20 star systems, sat tall in his golden seat, his eyes glowing faintly with power. He had heard enough rumors about how the human survived his daughters, how he carried strange light under his skin, how even Zila's mind tricks could not reach him now. He wanted to see it with his own eyes. The doors opened with a slow, deep hum. Captain Ethan Cole walked in, calm as ever. His clothes were simple, his expression unreadable. He did not bow. The king's voice rolled through the hall like a storm. Human of Earth, my court speaks of your strength and your defiance. Tell me, do you truly believe you are equal to the warriors of my empire? Ethan's tone was steady. I believe every being is equal until they prove otherwise. A quiet gasp moved through the crowd. No one spoke to the king that way. The king smiled, not in anger but in amusement. Then you will prove it. He clapped his hands. From both sides of the hall, 10 royal guards entered, massive figures clad in shining armor. Each one was a soldier of the Arctarian elite, trained since birth to fight and kill. Leora stepped forward. Father, you cannot be serious. He's human. The king raised a hand. Silence, daughter. This is my test. Let the human show us his truth. Ethan looked around the hall. The guards stood ready, weapons humming with light. He said quietly, I'll fight, but not to kill. The king chuckled. Then you may die with mercy. He raised his arm and the battle began. The first guard lunged, blade slicing through the air. Ethan moved aside, too fast for the eye to follow, and struck once at the guard's chest. The armor dented inward and the giant stumbled back. The second guard attacked from behind. But Ethan turned, grabbed his arm, and flipped him over with almost effortless motion. The hall fell silent except for the clash of armor hitting stone. Leora's eyes widened. He's faster than before, Zayla whispered. No. He's reading them. Every move, every breath. Naira leaned forward, unable to look away. He's beautiful. The guards roared and attacked together, energy weapons firing blue light. Ethan's body shimmered faintly, his skin glowing with that same strange pulse. The beams missed him, bending away slightly as if something invisible was pushing them aside. He dashed forward, striking one guard in the chest, another in the legs. Every movement was precise, clean, and controlled. Within minutes, all 10 guards were down, alive, but defeated. Ethan stood in the center of the hall, breathing slowly, calm as ever. The silence that followed was heavy and unreal. Even the king had risen from his throne. No one moved. No one spoke. Then the king smiled, a wide, proud smile. Remarkable. A human who stands against my warriors and still shows mercy. You fight with skill and with heart. Ethan bowed slightly. Violence without reason is chaos. I don't fight to impress. I fight to protect. The king's eyes gleamed. Then perhaps you are not as small as I thought. He turned toward his daughters. My children, from this day forth you will train with the human. Learn his ways. Study his strength. Perhaps in him lies something even we have forgotten. The sisters looked at each other, uncertain. Leora frowned. Train with him? Naira smirked. Or maybe he trains us. The king's tone grew cold. This is my command. The crowd bowed and the guards carried their fallen comrades away. Ethan stood quietly watching the royal family. As the king turned to leave, he paused and said softly, Human, tell me truthfully, what is it that drives you? Ethan looked up. Hope. It's what keeps humans alive when everything else fails. The king nodded slowly, almost respectfully. Then guard that hope well. You may need it soon. When the hall emptied, the sisters approached Ethan. Leora spoke first. You've earned Father's respect for now, but don't think that means you belong here. Ethan smiled faintly. I'm not here to belong. I'm here to prepare. Zila's eyes narrowed. Prepare for what? He looked past them, toward the stars beyond the palace window. For what's coming? Naira laughed nervously. You talk like a prophet. Ethan turned to her, his gaze sharp. No, I talk like someone who's seen the end once already. The sisters fell silent. None of them knew what to say. And high above them, through the glass ceiling, the stars seemed to flicker just for a moment, as if something dark had passed between them. Something unseen. Something waiting. The golden suns of Arctaria rose high over the palace, bathing the marble towers in warm light. The air was clear, the gardens alive with glowing plants that shimmered like living crystals. But within the training grounds, silence reigned. The three alien sisters, Leora, Zila, and Naira, stood waiting. Their armor gleamed, their expressions sharp. In front of them stood Ethan Cole, wearing only a light combat suit. It was the first day of their joint training. The king's command had made it law. The royal daughters would learn from the human just as he would learn from them. Leora crossed her arms. Do not expect us to take orders from you, human. Ethan smiled faintly. Good, I don't give orders. I teach lessons, Naira rolled her eyes. Lessons? From a species that can't even breathe in space? Ethan turned to her calmly. Humans may not breathe in space, but we still found a way to cross it. That answer silenced her for a moment. Zila stepped forward, curious. Then teach, human. Show us this so-called way, Ethan nodded. Lesson 1. Strength isn't only about power. It's about control. He walked to the center of the arena and pointed at a large floating boulder. Try to break it, he said. Leora smirked and raised her hand. A blast of red plasma burst from her palm, shattering the rock into dust. Easy, she said proudly. Ethan shook his head. You destroyed it. That's not control. He motioned to another boulder. He touched his wrist. Tiny blue lights flickered beneath his skin, and the rock began to lift gently. Slowly, he carved a perfect sphere from its center, letting it fall softly to the ground. The sisters watched in silence. Ethan turned to them. Anyone can destroy. But to shape something, that's true power. Leora's proud smile faded. For the first time, she had no quick reply. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, the sisters met Ethan in the courtyard, and every day he surprised them. He showed them how humans trained not with energy or psychic power, but with discipline. He made them balance on narrow beams, blindfolded, while wind machines howled around them. He taught them hand-to-hand combat where every movement mattered. Naira complained the most. This is pointless. We could crush armies with our minds. Ethan smiled. And yet you still lose balance when the ground shakes, she grumbled. But she kept training. Leora, who once saw him as nothing but a weak being, began to notice his focus, the way his breath stayed calm, the way his eyes always studied, learned, adapted. Zila found herself drawn to his mind. When she tried again to sense his thoughts, she felt something strange. Not resistance this time, but an echo of emotion. Memories of fire, loss, and determination. A planet in ruins. A child crying under a burning sky. She stopped suddenly. Ethan, you've seen war. He looked at her quietly. I've seen what happens when we forget mercy. One afternoon during combat drills, the sisters faced Ethan together again. They fought as one, blades of light, psychic waves, and plasma bursts filling the air. But this time, they were not mocking him. They were learning from him. Ethan's movements were sharp but measured. He parried Naira's strike, sidestepped Leora's blast, and blocked Zila's mind push without anger. When the fight ended, they stood panting, exhausted, and strangely smiling. Naira laughed first. You made me sweat, human. That's a first, Ethan chuckled. That's progress, Leora nodded slowly. Your kind. You fight differently. Not for dominance, but for purpose. Ethan replied. On Earth, we don't fight to prove who's strongest. We fight to make sure someone weaker doesn't fall. Zila tilted her head. And you still think you can protect an empire alone? Ethan looked up at the sky, his eyes distant. I don't plan to protect it alone. I plan to make it strong enough to protect itself. Later that night, the sisters gathered in the garden under the twin moons. They spoke quietly, something they had never done before. Naira plucked a glowing flower and twirled it between her fingers. He's different, isn't he? Leora sighed. He's reckless, but I can't deny his strength, Zila whispered. It's not his strength that frightens me. It's his heart. It feels endless. They fell silent for a while, watching the stars shimmer across the night sky. In the distance from his balcony, Ethan watched them too. He smiled faintly. Not because he had won their respect, but because he saw something changing in them. For the first time, the royal sisters looked not like untouchable gods, but like people learning to be something more. But peace never lasts long in the galaxy. As dawn approached, Ethan felt a sharp vibration through the ground, a pulse of energy coming from beyond the palace walls. He looked up at the horizon and saw a dark ripple tear across the stars. He whispered to himself, "It's begun." The sisters, still talking in the garden, turned as the sky above them shimmered red. Far away, beyond Arctaria's moons, an ancient fleet was waking, ships powered by the same energy that slept inside Ethan's veins. The time for training was over. The real war was coming. Night fell heavy on Arctaria. The stars, once calm and bright, flickered strangely as if something vast and dark was crawling between them. The air itself seemed to tremble. In the royal command tower, alarms began to hum, a low, uneasy sound that hadn't been heard in centuries. Red lights flickered across the control panels. Officers shouted reports in panic. Unknown fleet approaching from the outer belt. Power signatures. "Ancient unregistered." "They're not ours, my king." King Theros stood at the balcony, his golden armor reflecting the storm of red warning lights. He looked up at the sky, eyes narrowing. So, it begins. Behind him, Leora, Zila, and Nira rushed into the chamber, followed by Ethan Cole. His face was calm, but the faint blue light under his skin had begun to pulse faster. Ethan spoke softly. "They've found me." The king turned sharply. "Explain yourself, human." Ethan took a deep breath. "The power inside me, Project Dawnfire, it wasn't made by humans. It was a seed left behind by the ancient builders. I'm linked to it, and so are they." He pointed toward the sky where distant shadows now burned like black fire. "They're called the Ecliptics, machines born from the same creators. They were sleeping until I woke their signal." The king's face hardened. "So you brought this doom upon us?" Ethan's voice remained firm. "No, your majesty. I brought you a chance to stop it." Minutes later, the city shook as the first blast hit. The sky filled with dark ships, massive, jagged things that seemed to drink the light around them. Energy fields cracked as they struck the planet's defense grid. Citizens screamed. Towers fell. The Arctarian capital was burning. Leora grabbed her plasma blade. "We have to get to the front line." Ethan stopped her. "No, you'll die there. We need to strike at the core. Cut the head before the swarm grows." Zella frowned. "And where do you suggest we go, human?" Ethan's eyes glowed brighter now. "My ship, the Dawnbringer. It's hidden beneath your city." It was built for this. The sisters exchanged glances. None of them trusted him completely, but the fire in his voice left no doubt. The king raised his hand. "Go then. Protect my empire." His eyes softened just for a moment as he looked at Ethan. "And if you fail," Ethan nodded, "then there won't be an empire left to save." The underground hangar doors opened with a roar. There, resting in darkness, was the Dawnbringer, a sleek silver vessel shaped like a burning arrow. Its hull shimmered with both human steel and alien crystal. As they boarded, Nira ran her hand across the control surface. "You built this?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I finished it." When the engines flared to life, the entire chamber glowed blue. The Dawnbringer rose like a comet breaking through a storm. They shot into the sky, straight into the black swarm. The battle began. Hundreds of enemy drones poured toward them, dark wings glinting in the void. Leora took the shield controls, her fingers moving fast. "Shields at 80%. Zila's eyes turned bright blue. "I'm jamming their psychic frequencies." Nira grinned fiercely, taking the helm. "Then hold tight." The Dawnbringer spun through the chaos, dodging plasma bursts and beams of crimson light. Ethan fired the main cannon, a stream of white energy that ripped through 3 ships at once. The sisters shouted in awe. "That weapon, what is it?" Leora asked. "Human hope," Ethan said quietly, condensed into light. The words sounded impossible, but they felt true. Hours passed. The battle raged. The skies of Arctaria were filled with wreckage, light, and screams. But slowly, the tide began to turn. Then the main enemy ship appeared, a colossal craft the size of a mountain pulsing with black energy. Its voice echoed across the comms, cold and mechanical. "Ethan Cole, return the Dawnfire core, or we consume this world." Ethan's face hardened. "You'll have to take it from me." He looked at the sisters. "Get ready. This is the last strike." They nodded. No hesitation now. No mockery. Only trust. Leora channeled every ounce of her strength into the shields. Zella focused her mind, sending illusions into the enemy formation. Naira aimed straight for the heart of the dark ship. "Now!" Ethan shouted. He unleashed the power within him. The light under his skin exploded outward, merging with the Dawnbringer's core. The ship became a beam of pure blue fire, piercing straight through the enemy flagship. A massive flash consumed the sky. When the light faded, the dark fleet was gone, vanished into dust and silence. Inside the smoking cockpit, the sisters looked around, gasping for air. The controls sparked, alarms screamed, and Ethan lay slumped in his seat unconscious. His body still glowed faintly, but his breathing was weak. Nira reached out, trembling. "Ethan, wake up!" He didn't move. Leora looked out the window where the burning sky was slowly clearing. "He saved us all." Zila's voice was quiet, filled with awe. "No, he saved more than that." They stared at the human, the man they had once mocked, and realized something no Arctarian had ever said before. This human had become the light of their world. The war was over. For the first time in living memory, the skies above Arctaria were quiet. No flames, no screams, no falling towers, only silence and a sky filled with soft blue light, the last echo of the Dawnbringer's sacrifice. The royal city lay half in ruins, but the people were alive. The enemy fleet had vanished into dust, destroyed by the human they once mocked. Inside the palace's healing chamber, Ethan Cole lay still upon a crystal bed. His skin no longer glowed, though faint veins of silver light traced his arms like sleeping rivers. Machines hummed softly around him, reading signs that even the Arctarian healers couldn't understand. For 3 days, he did not wake. The sisters stayed by his side, each in their own way. Leora, the eldest, sat quietly, her proud posture softened. She had once called him weak, but now she guarded his chamber like a sentinel. Zella, the middle sister, watched him closely, her telepathic senses trying to read his dreams. But she could only feel warmth, courage, and pain, and Naira, the youngest, refused to leave the room at all. She talked to him softly, telling him about the world outside, about how the people now spoke his name with awe. She whispered, "They call you the Starborn now, the human who burned like the sun." Still, he did not move. On the morning of the 4th day, the chamber doors opened. King Theros entered, wearing no crown, no armor, only a robe of dark gold. His usual thunderous presence felt strangely quiet. He stood at the foot of Ethan's bed, looking down at the man who had changed everything. "My daughters," the king said softly, "you have seen what no Arctarian has ever witnessed. A mortal human who faced gods. And one," Leora bowed her head. "He is no ordinary mortal, father." The king nodded. "No, but perhaps that is what makes him special." He turned his gaze to Zela. "You told me he carries power from before the stars." "Yes," she said. "But he used it not to conquer, only to protect," Theros smiled faintly. "A rare choice in this galaxy." Then he looked to Naira, who sat closest to Ethan. "And you, my child, what do you see in this human?" Naira met his eyes. "I see hope." For a moment the king said nothing. Then he spoke, his voice heavy and certain. "Then hope he shall bring to our bloodline." The sisters looked up in confusion. Leora frowned. "Father, what do you mean?" The king stepped forward, his gaze steady. "By royal decree, the human known as Ethan Cole will be joined to the royal house of Arctaria." Naira's eyes widened. "Joined? You mean—" "Yes," the king said, smiling now. "He will marry the 3 celestial daughters of my blood. The union of Earth and Arctaria will mark a new age, one born of courage, not conquest." The hall fell silent. Even the hum of the machines seemed to fade. Hours later, Ethan awoke. His eyes opened slowly, catching the warm light of the chamber. The first thing he saw was Naira's face, her eyes shining with tears. "You're awake," she whispered. "Finally." Ethan tried to sit up, groaning. "How long?" 3 days, Zela said from beside her. You burned brighter than any sun. We thought you'd never return." He looked around at the sisters, then to the king standing near the door. "Is it over?" The king nodded. "The ecliptics are gone. You saved us all, human." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then my mission's complete." But the king shook his head. "No, Ethan Cole, your mission is just beginning." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Theros stepped closer, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You came as a stranger. You stood against my daughters, against my guards, against an army of gods. And yet you saved us. Not for reward, not for glory, but because you believed in something greater. For that reason I have made my decision." He raised his hand. "You will join my royal family. You will be bound to my daughters not as prisoner or pet, but as equal." Ethan froze. "Marry your daughters?" The king smiled. "Yes, the empire needs your strength and your heart." The sisters stood speechless. Neera's lips parted, but no words came. Leora's proud face softened into something close to wonder. Zela lowered her head, hiding the small, rare smile that crossed her lips. Ethan finally said, "I'm just a soldier, your majesty, not a king." Theros' voice grew gentle. "Then be the kind of king the galaxy has never seen. One who builds, not conquers." That night, the palace filled with light once again, not for war, but for unity. The people of Arctaria gathered under the glowing towers as the humans stood beside the three sisters. The stars above shimmered brighter than ever, as if the universe itself watched in silence. When the ceremony ended, Ethan looked up at the endless night sky and whispered, "Earth will never believe this." Nyra laughed softly beside him. "Then don't tell them." "Let it stay our secret," Leora added, "a secret written among the stars." And Zela, with quiet warmth, said, "The human who defied the gods now stands among them." Ethan looked at them all, then at the galaxy stretching before him. "No," he said softly, "I stand with them." As the twin moons rose high and the palace lights shimmered, the legend of the human King of Arctaria was born, a story of fire, courage, and love that would echo through the stars for all time.